Hello and welcome, and thank you for joining me on this journey as we explore the world of vampires through time and around the world. Why are you playing with garlic? You think we have vampires? You trying to move the garlic to the door? No, you're getting closer. Long before Dracula, and I'm guessing he's probably one of the best known vampires, thanks to Bram Stoker, Carmilla, and even The Vampire: A Tale by John Polidori, vampires were being talked about through myths, legends, and numerous cultures. Now, before you chuckle and ask yourself how could people believe in something like vampires, you have to remember, back in the day, when people died, they were not sent off to a mortician and embalmed. The deceased was placed in the living room, and family and friends came to pay their respects at a private home. It was very different than what happens nowadays when a loved one passes on. My father, who grew up in a very small village in Europe, and when I say small village, I mean no paved streets, outdoor plumbing, very small, basic things. The story he shared with me was about a woman who had passed away in their village. And typically people were left in the living room for 3 days prior to burial. For this woman, this turned out to be a very lucky thing because as people were coming to visit, she suddenly sat up and wondered what the heck was going on. Needless to say, it caused quite a stir throughout the town. Things like that didn't just happen in my father's teeny village. They were happening all over the world. Again, people tend to forget there weren't always hospitals and access to the type of medical care that many people have nowadays. And some people in the world still don't have access to that type of medical care. Not everyone gets sent to the mortician for embalming. Knowing that and thinking about the historical times and what was going on in the world at those particular times, it gives you a little bit of an idea how some of these vampire legends may have started. And as I say, they are all over the world. They have different names and different characteristics. Part of the series will be going through and taking a look at some of that information. These are a few of the books that I will be rereading, some for the second, third time, compiling my notes, and then talking about the information that's presented. All of the books that I show in this video today will be listed in the description box down below. That will also give you an idea of what's coming up with the series. Now, I've already mentioned Dracula, and as I've also said, he was my first vampire. Barlow was my second. Salem's Lot by Stephen King, and then Lestat. Interview with a Vampire by Anne Rice. Let me know in the comments down below, do you remember your first vampire read? Who was it? And is it a book that you've reread? I've read Dracula a number of times. I'll be reading Dracula again, but this time I'll be reading the discounted copy that I found at Indigo so that I can do annotating and make notes for the video, because this is my original copy from when I was much younger than I am now, making this book older than some of the people watching this video. I'll also be rereading and making extensive notes on In Search of Dracula and A Brief History of Vampires, as these both delve into Vlad Tepes, who I will also be doing a video about, taking a look at the historical figure as well as the historical events tied in with that individual. When it comes to Dracula, that will likely be a 2 or 3-part series all on its own. Originally, when I thought of doing this series, I thought of starting, of course, with The Vampire by John Polidori, which is the first published work about vampires, going on to Carmilla, then Dracula, and moving forward in time. However, considering there are thousands of books and short stories all related to vampires, and that number jumps much bigger if you include the stories that vampires are in but may not be the main character. So trying to do that accurately in a historical timeline is far beyond my skills and resources, as it's just little me, and that would just take way too much. Decided that instead, yes, I will start with John Polidori's The Vampire, A Tale. That work was actually first published under the name of Lord Byron, as he's the one who wrote the short story during that famous weekend when Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein. But Lord Byron never finished the story, so John Polidori expanded it and turned it into the first published vampire story. I'll talk more about the story and the publication when we get to that video. The next story that I cover will be Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fanu. I have a copy of Carmilla in this book. I also have a separate copy of Carmilla, and Carmilla also comes up in Vampires, Encounters with the Undead. This is by David J. Skal, and that's why I'm very careful now before I pick up collections, because I probably have 3, if not 4 copies of Carmilla in the different groups. The family of Verdilac, also included in Vampires, I know I've read in other collections. Dracula, there is a short excerpt in here. It also includes Dracula's Guest, which I still need to read, and I know I've seen in some of my other collections. We have Count Magnus, who I know I've also read more than once. The Room in the Tower, which is an amazing story, and I've also read that more than once in different collections. And The Girl with the Hungry Eyes, which I've just recently read as well. So in this particular book, and I'll take a few episodes to cover this as well, this book was published in 2006. This particular section is talking about Coppola's movie Dracula, but as you can see, down the side are a list of a number of other movies, and he does have them in chronological order. So there's a lot of content to cover. I have a couple different collections by Poe. This one is the illustrated copy with sprayed edges that I was lucky to find. So far with Poe, I've only read The Pit and the Pendulum, The Telltale Heart. Oh, there's the one where the person gets buried behind the bricks. I never remember the name of that one. I recently found out about Legia, watching a live stream by Jen and her guest over on Literary Love 123. So I need to read the story before I go and do Team Rewatch, because I came in at the end, but I haven't read the story before. So be reading that very shortly and going to check out Jen's live stream. I highly recommend checking out her channel, and I will leave a link down below. With the vampires, I'll also be looking at a number of different collections, my supernatural short stories, which is where I said I have Polidori, be looking at Stephen King's NightShift, where he has 2 stories related to Salem's Lot. I have Voices from the Vault, which I've mentioned in the past on my channel, and I've done a few readings of the vampire stories there. I'll also be taking a look at vampires and other stories. So they certainly show up in the Dresden Files, in Obsidian Murders by Nicole Brona, we meet Bloodsworth, who's a very interesting character. I'll leave a link to Nicole's channel down below. Again, highly recommend checking out her channel and the Midnight Detective Agency, as well as her other works. I will be rereading A Discovery of Witches, as we have a vampire in this story. I haven't read the other 2 books in the series. Let me know in the comments down below if you have. And yes, Kat, I know you have not. I'll leave a link to Kat's channel down below, one of my buddies here on YouTube. She has a fun channel where you can find out about the books she's reading, and she has a lot of shorts with her adorable kids. So be sure to go check her out as well. Other vampire books that I'll be talking about, of course, the entire Vampire Chronicles series by Anne Rice. Currently, I'm reading this with a group. I'll leave links to all of their channels down below. It's been a really fun experience reading the Chronicles for the first time in order. I read them all over the place in the last few years. There are a few that I hadn't read before, like Memnoch the Devil, Blood and Gold, which is Marius's story, and Blood Canticle. But I've read the others out of sequence, so it's been a good time reading them in order and having other people to chat with about that. I'll be rereading Twilight. It's been well over a decade since I've read the story. Edward just turned 20 last year. Hard to believe. Time's really going fast. And no, I likely won't be reading the rest of the series, but I do need to read Twilight because there are certain things about Edward and that story. I'll also be reading Dracula. This is by Kim Newman. To me, it's just an interesting twist as we have Queen Victoria married to Vlad. I'm not sure how that's going to work out, but I'll find out in my upcoming read. To help along with some of this journey, I'll also be reading and talking about writing the paranormal novel, techniques and exercises for weaving supernatural elements into your story. This is by Stephen Harper. Now, no, I'm not planning on writing a novel. This has been an enjoyable read, and of course it's got a full moon on it. That's what caught my eye with this book. But it does explain how did Stephenie Meyers become popular writing about a sparkly vampire. The other part that I'll be looking at is, of course, how much all these vampires vary from each other. I mean, we started out with this creepy looking thing in Nosferatu back in the day. I haven't seen the updated version of Nosferatu. Let me know in the comments down below. Have you seen the updated Nosferatu? Is he still that gruesome character, or is he now all dressed up and fancy like most of these other New Age vampires? We'll also be taking a look at the TV shows and the movies, so Buffy, Angel, Underworld, Coppola's Dracula, Dracula Untold, and so many more. Currently, the plan is to have one video up every 2 weeks. I'll try and remember to mention at the end of each video what's coming up in the following one. There's a lot of material to cover. I have a lot of reading on my plate, and that's part of why at the moment I'm looking at every other week for a video. As I start catching up with some of the reading and those notes start coming together a bit quicker, I may bump it to one video a week, because even at that rate, this series will continue on for years to cover all the different vampires. That gives you an idea of what this series is going to be about, the various things that I'll be covering, the list of books that I currently have on my have read, need to make notes, need to reread and make notes, are all listed in the description box down below. I also have a list of the TV shows and movies that I'll be mentioning throughout this series. I have no doubt that list will definitely continue growing. Let me know in the comments down below, do you have a favorite vampire book, TV, or movie? I'm very much looking forward to this series. As I've said, vampires have been with me for a very long time. I'm looking forward to the rereads, new reads, and exploring this amazing genre. There certainly is a lot of content to get through. I look forward to you joining me on this journey and all the various time travel that we'll be doing through the nights, yes, even through the day, as some vampires were out and about through the daytime, where we'll find them hunting, scaring us, and entertaining us. And remember, until next week when we get to John Polidori's story, if someone named Lord Ruthven is paying your way and asks you to make a promise, you might want to rethink that. As our main character in The Vampire found out, I'll tell you more about that next week. And in the meantime, be safe, be well, and big hugs.